The search for the next Speaker of the House has been a complete mess over the past few weeks. We had McCarthy at one point. Then he was forced out, strong-armed out of the race by the Freedom Caucus and other extreme right-wingers in the Republican Party in the House. But now here comes Paul Ryan to possibly make everything right again in the world. But he's coming with a list of demands. Now, before he announced that he would consider going for the speakership, the Freedom Caucus put forward their list of demands, which we'll get to, and they're fairly strict, fairly stringent. But he's saying he will be the unity representative, the one who brings these different groups together, if he gets unanimous endorsements from the Freedom Caucus, the House Freedom Caucus, the Republican Study Committee, and the Tuesday Group, which is a more moderate caucus in the Republican Party in the House. But here are some of his demands. First, he refuses to agree to anything in advance of being elected Speaker. He will not pre-commit to anything the Freedom Caucus wants. And as I said before, that is a pretty long list, including being willing to shut down the government, not raise the debt ceiling unless there's significant entitlement reform tied to it. Second, he wants the Freedom Caucus to publicly endorse him for Speaker, even without the agreements ahead of time. This would require 4/5 of the Freedom Caucus to vote to support him. And third, he wants the Freedom Caucus to agree to rules changes that would vastly limit their power moving forward. He wants to eliminate their ability to oust a sitting speaker by making a motion to vacate the chair. Oof. So that's something that Boehner had to continually worry about during his time. I totally understand why Paul Ryan wouldn't like it.
Sure.
But they must be in fairly desperate straits if they would be willing to, a group that has such a strong sense of their own power, to be willing to agree to these things. And they're currently endorsing Representative Daniel Webster of Florida, yes. But who the hell even knows who that is? And so they need someone like Paul Ryan, perhaps.
They do, but I think their own hubris will get in the way, to be honest with you. These are 40 individuals whose constituency we don't really know. We know the 9 founders. You said it was founded in January of this year. It's relatively recent. They're extremely secretive. They're on the far right of the Tea Party. A lot of them are Tea Party, ex-Tea Party. It just wasn't stringent enough for them. This won't sting to their principles enough.
They became such bleeding hearts in the Tea Party.
They became so sensitive to everything all of a sudden. They were just like, what is going on? So, and as you're right, they need 80% majority amongst their 40 or so in order to endorse. And because of the constituency, because of the makeup of the House at the moment, they've got it by the balls. Because those 40 votes make all the difference between that 218, getting over that 218 mark or not. So they really are the kingmakers here, and it is troubling. And they know that, and they are taking it to brinkmanship. And I think their response to his demands, such that they are, which seem very reasonable, indicates that they are in no mood to contemplate being dictated to, because really that goes against their whole philosophy. Their whole philosophy is less top-down, much more rank-and-file involvement and engagement. And he is basically saying the opposite. He's saying, I want to build a bridge. Yeah, but I want to be...
It's very Julius Caesar, actually. I don't want to make him sound any cooler than he actually is. Julius Caesar obviously has a somewhat troubling record, but exactly. He wants to be able... He says he's willing to take arrows to the chest, but not the back. I question whether he's willing to take the arrows to the chest, but it is a cool little turn of phrase. He doesn't want to live like John Boehner did, constantly worried about being attacked, constantly being attacked by those farther to the right, or not even necessarily farther to the right, but those without, from Boehner's point of view, a sufficient respect for the workflow of the speakership and the House, and government generally. Right. Those who have no interest in the way things typically have worked.
I love a good indignant fight. I mean, you got two sides that are pissed. So, I mean, one side is flexing their power, putting their chest out. You know, we're Kingsmakers. We ran John Boehner out. You know what we can do to you. You need to agree to these terms. But Paul Ryan is thinking, well, you need me. So, you know, it's like you just won the lottery and you have a shit job. You're going to say, well, I'll tell you what, I'll come back and I'll keep being the custodian, but I don't have to sweep. You know? So it's just the way it works. So I'm actually looking forward to see who folds first. And Paul Ryan could possibly walk out and say, I don't need this. You need me.
And
so
he doesn't really need it.
And he's in control of the contract negotiation.
Yeah. Right. And as one of the tweets, I think, said, well, he's done this because then he can just walk away and say, well, at least I tried.
I tried to be the adult in the room.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. And I mean, listen, John Boehner's out at the end of the month. October 30th, he's done.
Yeah, we're supposed to have a vote next week.
They're supposed to agree on this on Friday as to whether they want to go for him. And then you're right, then they're supposed to have a vote next week to inaugurate or to seal to decide whoever it's going to be.
Which, by the way, I'm kind of on Paul Ryan's side because one of their demands, of course, they want the next speaker to refuse to raise the debt limit debt ceiling, unless it's tied to Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare, and Medicaid. So as soon as he walks in a week and a half, he has to agree to these things that on his first role as new speaker is going to blame him and the party for shutting down the government again and refusing all these things that they refused before there was a problem last time. So who wants that job?
Yeah.
You
and
know?
exactly the reason that John Boehner left. It was this, well, I was going to say it was this sort of thing, but no, it's this exact thing. Don't raise the debt ceiling unless they're willing to set fire to the social safety net. Now, there was one other requirement that he had, which actually makes me feel a little bit bad for John Boehner that he didn't have something like this. But he says, I cannot and will not give up my family time. This is a job where you are expected to be on the road about 100 days a year. Our kids are 10, 12, and 13, and I'm not going to do that. Now, John Boehner apparently spent 3 weekends out of every month fundraising, which, if that's the only fundraising he's doing, is probably less than other congressmen, but it's still a significant amount of time. I want to help out Paul Ryan and every politician by getting money out of politics, but until then, he doesn't want that. But unfortunately, that would be giving him privileges that the vast majority of Americans don't have on the job, especially those at the lower end of the economic totem pole. The United States remains the only developed country with no guaranteed paid family leave policy, and Republicans have blocked President Barack Obama's attempts to make it law. Most workers say they have access to unpaid leave thanks to the Family Medical Leave Act of 1993, again, passed under a Democrat. But only 53% of workers report being able to take some type of paid leave for their own illness, and only 39% report being able to take some type of paid family leave for the birth of a child. And understand that some type can mean a lot of different things in different contexts. So he wants the sort of situation that we want for all Americans.
Yes, he wants that flexibility, which is very nice. And as you said, it's great that he can be in that position to dictate that. It just seems a little bit counterintuitive to the philosophy of his party.
Exactly.